Greetings tankers, welcome to the first video in a long series of videos dedicated to reviewing every tank in World of Tanks. Premium vehicles, non-specialty vehicles, limited availability vehicles, you name it. If I have it, I will show you it. If I don't have it yet, you can expect it to come by later in the future. But for now, we're going to start with the personal favorite tank of mine, the best tank I actually ever played in right now, and currently holds the record in my service record for the most damage dealt in a tank, the highest amount of battles played, the biggest amount of experience earned, and has the best skill crew that I have, which is my 7 skill crew, which is currently not sitting anywhere because for the purposes of this video. So, the Object 140. The Object 140 is the second of 5 Tier 10 Soviet medium tanks. The first one, the 62A, the second one, the 140 itself, the third one, the 430, the fourth one, the 907, which is a Clan Wars campaign exclusive tank, and the T-22SR, available through the in-game World of Tanks Rampage mode missions. So, how is the 140? Well, in and of itself, it's a good tank. But, is there anything special about it? Well, that's what we're here to analyze. First things first, let's start with the basic ones. 1900 hit points. It's pretty standard for a Tier 10 Soviet medium tank. It's not the highest value that you can get out of any Tier 10 tank. That record belongs to the E50 with 2050 hit points, but it's also not the lowest. The Bat Chatillon 25-ton tank stands as the lowest with only 1800, so it sits barely in the middle ground. It's a 100-point difference from the low end, and it's about 200 points difference from the high end, but that's not really a big of a deal since most tanks fall under 1950, 2000, it's like 1950, something like that. It's not making a significant difference. So, average HP. Engine power, not that good for a tank that weighs 36.5 tons. It has a 580 horsepower engine, which gives it a specific to weight horsepower to weight ratio of about 16.1, or something like this. I'll need to double check my values here. Yes, it's about 16, which isn't great, considering that it's a fairly light tank. It just lacks the raw engine power of the T-54 at previous Tier 9, which may be a bit of a letdown. But it's not a big deal, because it still retains the top speed of the T-54. It has 55 km/h top speed, which is good, because you'll love that top speed, especially when you compare it to something as slow as, say, a Centurion Action X or a M48 Patton. As far as the mobility on this tank is concerned, and by mobility I mean the way the tank is actually able to maneuver as opposed to brute force speed, it is, again, it actually sticks on the higher end of the scale. Traverse speed, 55 degrees a second on the hull, whereas the actual turret traverse is 40 degrees. This makes the tank very difficult to, 1, get around, and 2, makes it very easy to out-circle enemies, considering that it doesn't need the ridiculous amount of speed in order to out-circle a target. Now, there is a reason for this. Now, there isn't a statistic to show you right now. Built into the game, you'd have to use mods or an outside source like Tanks GG or Tank Inspector, etc., in order to pull it up. But the individual suspensions of the 140 are absolutely fantastic. It has one of the best suspensions out of any tank at Tier 10. This allows it to accelerate quickly regardless of the terrain, except for swamps, in which case, well, you're in a swamp. I don't expect any tank to go fast in a swamp. And it still doesn't do it. Now, it isn't as good as the 62As, because it makes up for it with the better top speed, so they perform similarly in that respect. It's not as good as the M48s, because it's an American vehicle with really good on-the-move general characteristics. That's what it's designed to do. However, this is better than the E50M, it's better than the Centurion Action X, it's better than the other Russian meds, such as the 907, the 430, the T-22SR. Now, what this means, it's a very good, agile tank. It's not the best, but it's not the worst. And it definitely doesn't have those French Velcro tracks of the Bat Chat. Okay, now, onto the survivability as far as the armor is concerned. Hull armor, 100mm, situated at an angle of about 55 degrees. It's adequate, but not ideal. And what I mean by not ideal is the fact that the angled plate here, like even angling it like so, reveals your 80mm of side armor, which really are not going to take shots anyway, especially considering there's no slab of spaced armor anywhere along this section here, in the gaps above it, etc., or even right here. This is not spaced armor, these are just little canteens for the crew. As a result, it just doesn't allow it to take shots very easily. So, there's that. Now, what else is there? So, the hull armor, not that great frontally. It's decent, but it's not fantastic. It's not the E50M with the fantastic upper glacis plate and the fantastic side armor. But it's also no Batchat either, in the fact that it's not a frail light tank, and yes, I did just refer to the Batchat as a light tank. However, there is something you want to keep aware of, is that the rear armor is at maximum 55 degrees, and that's on this section on the upper part right here. Any lower, there is a chance that they will penetrate with high caliber HE rounds. In fact, you'll see that later on in this video. Okay, turret armor, 240mm. But like with everything in World of Tanks, it's a zoned space, especially with the newer vehicles and the HD reworks. So, how does the armor zoning work on this one? Well, the armor zoning is 240mm around the gun mantlet, with a section of spaced armor here that's also 240mm, so good luck getting through that without firing APCR just straight through the gun itself, in which case that's a very lucky shot. There is a section though, if you look at it from the side here, that does jut out just on the side of the guns that you can shoot with premium ammunition and almost be guaranteed to go through, but it's very difficult to hit at anywhere but point blank range. And I'm not joking about that, it's very difficult to hit anywhere by point blank range. And then the armor zones get progressively weaker and weaker as you head out, but their angle exaggerates more as you start to go away from the turret center. Meaning that reliably, you're going to be facing 300, almost 400, and just straight auto-bounce zones towards the extremities, with one exception. And that exception is this little section right above the weld line. The weld line here is about where the turret armor starts to really get flimsy. There's a little small section about right here, composed of armor that's 30mm thick, which can easily be overmatched by any tier 10 heavy tank or even tier 10 mediums if they have a shot down on you. So if you can't shoot anything but the turret on the 62A or the 140 and you're shooting from above it, shoot here, since you'll be guaranteed to go through. And there's another zone actually at just above this weld line, which has a section of 37mm. Any tier 10 heavy tank will just aim for this and go right through. And if they don't aim for this and instead try to aim for your more jutted out cupolas, then they will probably, if they miss, they will most likely glance at a section here and here and just overmatch right through. So it's something you have to be careful of, since they will be able to get through these sections. Okay, so speed, average. Maneuverability, above average. Armor value, average. So what's next? Okay, how about the gun performance? The gun that the 140 gets, look at me, I was about to say 62A. The Object 140 gets is a 100mm U8 TS. There is 5 different versions of this gun, unsurprisingly, because you have the 62A, which uses this gun, you have the 140, which uses this gun, the 430, which uses the gun, the T22SR, which uses a variant, and the 907, which also uses a variant of the same gun. The only minor differences are to the accuracy and the rate of fire, so we'll compare those here. 100mm gun, not a big deal. Not going to overmatch most things outside of light tanks. Average penetration, 264. This is actually on the lower end side of things, but there's a reason for it. Because of this right here, the high rate of fire. 9.09 rounds per minute. This tank loads really quickly. Combine that with a gun rammer, brothers in arms, premium consumables such as improved combat rations, ventilation, you can bring the reload down, you can bring the reload down to 5.22 without the benefits of Adrenaline Rush. With the benefits of Adrenaline Rush, you can actually get it under 5 seconds, which is really frightening if you think about it, because if you're tracked and you don't have a repair kit and this guy's able to shoot you freely while still keeping you tracked, you're toast. So that's something you don't want to have to deal with versus the 140. You don't want to get tracked by overcommitting. Average damage per shot, 320, which isn't that good compared to the average 390 or the average 440 that you get with the 121 or the 120. So you have the lowest damage per shot out of any tier 10 tank, but your rate of fire makes up for it and brings your damage per minute to better than most tanks at tier 10. The T57 Heavy, the AMX-50B, the STB, and I believe to a certain extent, it's the STB, the 430, and to a certain extent, I'm not 100% sure, the 907, all have better rate of fire than or better damage per minute than your tank. Everything else will eat your shots, which encourages you to take, because you have the better rate of fire, if you can, take opportunities where you can take 2 shots at an opponent after they pull the trigger. Because you will have the chance to pull 2 shots against an opponent and then pull back to reload while they are still reloading. There are some exceptions, but generally that's how it is. However, despite the impressive damage per minute, it's actually a fairly accurate tank gun. Sure, it's no E50M or Waffenträger E100 with the 128s, but it's still really accurate. It's 0.35 dispersion at 100 meters, which is the same as the higher damage per minute T110 or T57 Heavy. What am I saying E5 for? Aiming time, 2.1 seconds, which is a good value. It's not as fast as the Waffenträger's insane 1.9, but that's a tank destroyer, that's kind of cheating. It's a really good gun, but that's not the reason why the aiming time is so beneficial on this tank. The reason why the aiming time is so beneficial on this tank is because while it doesn't show it, again, because wargaming, the on-the-move of this tank is one of the top in class. The M48, the Centurion Action X, the 62A, and the Object 140 have the best tank stats for on-the-move in Tier 10. No other tanks will beat them in terms of on-the-move accuracy because they have the benefit of vertical stabilizers. They have, or historically, they have the benefit of laser sights, which is very nice. And they are able to accurately do so. Now, while the 62A has it and the 140 did not in the prototype stages, the 62A has better on the move as a result. The M48 has better on the move as a result, and the Centurion Action X would also have it. The 140, though, does get that benefit because it's a close relative to the 62A, because that's how Wargaming would put it in there, and if the tank had existed, it probably would have received it as well. So that's always nice to know. Now, as you can see here, this is the actual gun reload time. Right here, it's 5.97 right now as it stands. I'm not using the other crew to show you how low you can get the rate of fire, but it's still fairly impressive. 400 meters base view range. Not surprising because this is a tier 10 tank. Only the Patton, the Centurion Action X, the Leopard, and the Waffenträger Ausa V100 have better view range. Everything else is by base 400. And lastly, the signal range, which I don't understand what people tend to do, but it's 730, you're in a tier 10 vehicle, most maps are about a kilometer wide, you're never in a situation where you can't see your allies on the map. So, that being the case, let's move on to the equipment fittings. The equipment fittings on this tank are done in 2 ways. I'm going to give you first my loadout, which is what you see here on the bottom. First item, Vertical Stabilizer Mark 1. The ability to use on the move is definitely very important, especially considering that you have APCR, which against flat surfaces, you want to be able to shoot weak points on the move, which this tank is certainly capable of at close to mid-range, and at long range is definitely capable of hitting the target at least, even if it's not guaranteed to penetrate. Vertical Stabilizer helps improve its already fantastic gun characteristics and make it just a breeze to shoot targets while moving, full speed, on the move, on full charge reverse. It's one of the few tanks that can pull it successfully. Next one, medium caliber tank gun rammer is a very effective use on any medium tank or any tank with a single shot rate of fire gun. There are a few exceptions such as the mouse or even I think the mouse might be the only exception I can think of where you wouldn't want to take a gun rammer. 10% to the loading time, definitely a bonus. Take it immediately. Lastly, now this is where my change happens, improve ventilation. Now, the reason why, and I'll explain that in a moment, I choose ventilation is because my own preferred playstyle tends to be a little bit different than most others in terms of how they do it. Now the second version, and this is the version that I use for Clan Wars, it's the version most tankers will use, it's the version that the pro players will suggest, they will suggest taking coated optics. Now, there's a reason as to why. They say the 10% bonus to your view range, 400, will be boosted by a flat 10% to 440. Combine this with Brothers in Arms, you now have the benefit of 445, I believe? Yeah, with 445, adding Recon, adding Situational Awareness will increase your view range, and then using Food will increase it even further. However, I don't take it because of one reason. I use premium consumables on my tank. I don't use an auto fire extinguisher because I have 7 skills. I have full firefighting trained, meaning that I can take premium consumables like food instead of using coated optics to mitigate the advantage, because I have the 10% bonus to the crew coming from the food, plus the 5% bonus to the crew coming from the ventilation. Then I have the 5% bonus coming from the Brothers in Arms perk, which means that I can detect enemies from much further away. I can still detect it roughly about the same distance. At that point, the meter distance is about 10 to 15. It's not significant enough to actually be impactful. Especially since when I play this tank, I tend to be more aggressive. I tend to be more frontlining, meaning that at that point, I'm making up for the lack of view range just by closing the distance, which makes it less impactful. In certain situations, I'd much rather have optics over vents, but I found I just prefer to have the higher rate of fire. The choice is up to you. For Clan Wars, though, it's definitely a must. You must have coated optics, since ventilation will not help you in Clan Wars at all if all tanks are shooting the same bloody target. Like, that tank's gonna die. It doesn't matter if you shoot him any faster. He's gonna get focused and he's gonna die. So you'd much rather be able to spot and give information to your shot callers in order to make it easier for them to dictate the pace. So, that's how you want to use the 140's equipment. So what about the crew skills? Well, crew skills are fairly standard for the tank. For the commander, you would want to go in this order. For your first skill, you pick up 6 Sense. For your second skill, you take repairs. For your third skill, this is where you actually make a choice. It depends on whether or not you want Brothers in Arms as your third skill or your fourth skill, and I'll explain why I tend to take it as my fourth skill in a moment. But if you don't want that, you can take Situational Awareness for a flat 3% increase to your view range. You can go Recon, which improves your view range by 2%, or 20% when your optics are destroyed, which is very useful. And that's about it. Once you start making it to higher skills, then you would take Camouflage and Firefighting in order to improve your tank's overall effectiveness, and you can start using premium consumables. You may also want to take Mentor if you plan on doing so at, like, past skill 8s, because at that point you're going to struggle to gain experience. You really hit a wall past 6 skills. As for the gunner, first skill, repairs. They benefit more from repairs than anything else right now because you need to be able to repair your tracks quickly. The next skill after that will be Snapshot to further increase the already good on-the-move characteristics of the tank. And lastly, you would either pick up Brothers in Arms or, surprisingly enough, Camouflage as the next skill. Reducing your vehicle's visibility can be very useful, especially in public matches and clan wars, and it's almost a requirement for clans to have camouflage mounted on their vehicle to make them harder to detect. The lack of information can prove useful. After that, you would want to pick up Brothers in Arms. You can pick up Armor or Deadeye, since if your gun gets damaged, okay, having better accuracy on a damaged gun is never hurtful. And having Deadeye, which increases your damage to modules by 3%, or rather increases the probability of damage by 3%, with sheer volume of fire, statistically you'll be able to pull it off more often. As for your driver, again, repairs first. Second skill, Smooth Ride, which is really good on the tank because, again, improves the on-the-move of the tank. Third skill, again, either toss up between BI or Camouflage. And beyond that, you would want to go with, surprisingly enough, preventative maintenance. Your fuel tanks tend to get hit, and if your engine gets hit, you tend to be set aflame pretty easily. Clutch braking is not really necessary since you're almost top in class with your turning anyway. And off-road driving, again, almost top in class, though off-road driving can be useful. You very rarely ram enemies, so controlled impact is not really that useful for this tank. But, you know, when you start to run out of skills, what choices do you have? And lastly, the loader. Loader takes repair first. Almost a must. Then for the second skill, this is where things get interesting, because instead of taking camouflage like you would with everyone else, you would take safe stowage in order to prevent your somewhat fragile ammunition rack from getting detonated. I've had countless cases where this thing has saved me from utter destruction. From tier 10 tank destroyers, which are notorious for one-shotting medium tanks with their high damage to modules. So you want to make sure that you can survive through it. It's a 12.5% increase to the health of the ammunition rack, which can sometimes be just enough to prevent you from going boom and losing all 1900 hit points. So that helps. Afterwards, again, repairs, camouflage, brothers in arms. Then afterwards, here's where an interesting choice happens once you get brothers in arms. You can either take intuition or firefighting. Now, intuition, it will be a flat or 17% chance to, when you swap shells, for it to be an instant reload. The gun must be loaded when this happens, but it is possible to do this very, very effectively. Now, if you need to load a shell, like an HE round in order to finish an enemy, there's sometimes where that happens. There are other cases, though, where if you're caught in a mid-reload and you swap between shells, if that happens, you get an instant free reload, which sounds broken in my opinion, but the statistical probability of it happening are so low that it almost never happens. So you could do it if you swap ammunition types frequently, because then statistically you're more likely to have it happen. But if not, I would just go for the firefighting, since your tank does tend to get a set aflame a lot more frequently than other tanks. So, having discussed about everything from the crews, equipment, how the tank is statistically on paper, how does it play? Well, it plays like an average all-around medium tank that is good enough to accomplish every role, but is not the best in every role. It's no sniper like the E50M or the Leopard. It is no brawler like the 430 or the 121. It is no dogfighter like the Patton, the Centurion Action X, or what have you. And it's no scout like the Batshad. But it can do every role well enough that it can fill in the gaps of any team, provided you play properly. Yes, the turret is not as reliable as, say, the 62As or any heavy tank. It doesn't have the armor. But at the same time, you're also not as frail as other tanks. You're no E50M when it comes, you're no Batshot when it comes to frailty, but you're also no E50M when it comes to armor. You're that middle ground in between. And you should play with this in mind. There is not a single role which this tank cannot perform. Your tank lose all its light tanks? Okay, you can go scout. Just be careful when doing it, because you're not as fast, so if you get caught out, you'll die. Your tanks are your flank is missing a few tanks, you can go over there and provide a massive damage increase over there, because your high damage per minute, if you can keep the gun firing for long enough, it'll start to add up very quickly. If your team has no means of defending the base, you can do that. There's a versatility with this tank, and that's something that I really like about it, is that it's not the best at any role, but it's good enough in most roles that it can pretty much accomplish anything. It doesn't reliably bounce shots, though it can bounce shots, as you'll see with the replays, but it's just good enough. It's a good, well-rounded medium tank. It's also one of the few tanks that they use for Clan Wars at tier 10. The Russian meds, they will use all versions of this, though they tend to prefer the 140 over the 62A and the 430 because it's the best of the three in terms of balance. They will take a T-22 SR any day of the week, by the way, but that's a different story. So, now that we're done talking about the tank here in the garage, why don't we go ahead and jump you into some replays. Alright, first replay. This replay was picked up from what replay? This is Zizolus? Okay, we'll just call him Z, because I'm going to continue to butcher that. Playing the 140 on the Fjords map. This is a battle from EU, which, you know, is suggestive. And look at the beautiful camouflage on this tank. Look at that. I love that camouflage pattern. I really wish I had it on my tank. Unfortunately, I don't, but still. Anyway, moving on. Right now, he's playing a match on the Fjords. Now, at first, the combat doesn't really pick up, but you'll see later that it does get picked up and immediately reported. Welcome to EU, where apparently you get reported for trying to get people into your clan. You'll also notice that I have the up sound. It's personal preference. I don't tend to run mods too often if they actually improve performance of the game, with the exception of the server reticle, because that's always nice. Server reticle and turret extended, just because it looks a little better that way. And the server reticle helps the thing. But other than that, it's all down to personal preference for me. So, other than that, we're going to basically see him solo carry around in his Object 140. Now, first thing you'll notice is an RU who willingly threw his tank away, driving out in front of 3 heavy tanks, and any moment now he'll meet his end. Sui scouting at its finest. Oh jeez, I cannot pull a Jingles laugh. I'm sorry I tried. Not a lot of action going on, but he's in a really good spot, and he takes a shot, misses, where he might have hit the Waffenträger or something, because it was actually on target. I personally would have taken the second shot there. Yeah, looks like he hit the Waffenträger. Goes to the turret. Again, hit marker. Not really necessary, just for those MLG tank memes. Another hit. Sets him on fire. And puts one more into him to finish the WZ-111 off. Now Waffenträger. Now look what he's doing here. He's going for the inside drive wheel, trying to track this Waffenträger in the open. I personally wouldn't do this and just shoot the turret, because that thing doesn't have to be immobilized to deal with tons of damage into it. But still, it's good enough. Gets the critical, gets the tracking shot this time in order to keep him in place, and basically can just keep him pinned in. Gets lit. Leopard fires heat into him, because that's what you do in tier 10 tanks. You fire heat because you're a freaking scrub. I don't understand why people have to spam premium ammunition. It's not necessary. Finishes the Waffenträger. Now, things aren't looking too good for his team. They're down 3 tanks, but he himself has already amassed 2,000 damage, which is really good, actually, considering how the situation's been. Now, he's backing up into the more aggressive spot here. This is much more aggressive if you go here early on, but he risks being shot at. But still, he's doing a really good job. Puts one to the side, lower plate shot bounces, and that T-69 is going to light him. That's why I say it's, it's a bit risky, because he can get spotted. And uh-oh, that's not good. That's an E75 coming up the center line, up the F line. Not good. Doesn't have a good shot on him. Doesn't take it, waits for a better shot, so... Ooh, there's a 90 with him as well. And an STI. Now you see what I mean by the on the move. He actually hit the E75 at mid-range. Didn't penetrate, but still hit him. E75, pretty much pinned in. So he decides not to go around the normal way. He goes around trying to chase down this 1390. Now this is where the on the move of the tank really gets good, because look at how that 90 with those French Velcro tracks are gonna struggle to keep around, especially because he's turning. Gets one shot into him, runs over a tree. It doesn't even slow him down. He's still at top speed here, 30 kilometers. Finishes the 90, but takes a hit for it, and uh-oh, that E75 is pointing his gun. Knocks out his gun. Or his driver. How do you say gunner? Don't ram. There you go. Now he's gonna try to flank here and put a shot into him, which succeeds, but I personally would have just gone through the turret, since that's the weaker section, not the side armor. Because the side armor was still really well angled, so not necessary. Gets his driver back into the match, which is good, because he's in a really bad spot. You have a Waffenträger up on the north side, or the Jagdpanzer. And you also have an E4 up that line, which could be going top P100, or you could be coming up the middle line. Uh-oh. Nope, that's not good. Don't get shot. Ooh, that missed. That's always good. Shot misses, so... Now he has to be very careful here, because if he did take a hit from that E4, that could have been disastrous. I don't think the E4 let the shot fully aim, though, so... However, there are 2 tanks sitting towards space. They're not going to bother capping. They're going to instead push on the IS-7, who's currently the only one defending the cap besides the artillery, and decides to go help him out. IS-7 busy dealing with the other IS-7, so go for the 140. He's the only guy you can shoot at. IS-7 not going to shoot at you. In fact, he's reloading right now. Puts another one in the 140. That was a critical hit. Artillery takes a shot at him. Doesn't happen. But the 140 says, screw it. I'm going to the water. My team has this. So, and there goes his artillery. So, unfortunately, that 140 is still going to play a somewhat useful role in the fact that he can spot against the 261, which was just murdered by the E4. So now it's 2v6. Well, 2v5 technically, because that 140 is stuck. But still, it's not looking good for Z here. And any moment now, because that E4, yep, and there goes the E5. So now it's just Z alone against 5 enemy vehicles, 2 tank destroyers, one of which is on full health, and a lot of low health tanks, as well as 2 artillery, which isn't good. Now, what he's trying to do here is he's trying to get around up the 0 line, come around the flanks, and hopefully catch somebody with their flanks exposed and be able to kill him quickly with a high rate of fire of the gun. Unfortunately for him, it doesn't seem to go that way, because you'll see here in a moment, T69 on the cap circle, auto-locks, hits him. Doesn't get spotted though. His sixth sense didn't go off, which means that the 69 either has a set of damage optics, has poor view range, or the camouflage that he has on this is enough to keep him hidden. Now he has to go back and reset, but he has to be careful because there could be tanks that might try to flush him out because he gave his position away. Not directly, and oh crap, it's a Jagdpanzer 100. He missed. Okay, take your time. You need to put 3 shots into him. Okay, 2 now. 2 high damage shots. That's all you need. Just make it count. Okay, instead goes for the tracking shot. I personally would have gone for the little plate, but it's fine. Jagdpanzer repairs it. Puts another one into him. He's still gonna need 2 shots to fish him off now because it's such a low roll. It was 38, less damage than we need. We need 2 high rolls there. So, and now they're both on the cap, which means he's only got 20 seconds to deal with them. Loads his first heat round, very appropriate. He's gonna need the better penetration against that flat armor superstructure. Goes through, that's 1. He's gonna get spotted. He needs to make this one count. Don't take a hit. Ooh, it bounces. It was really lucky. And the E4 bounces somehow. I'm not even sure how that's possible, but either way, he can't afford to sit here. He needs to reset the T69. Bounces off the T69. He's got 12 seconds, but that's plenty of time to reset. There we go. Base is reset. Now he has to deal with the T69, but he's also keeping that Jagdpanzer between him. There's the enemy E100 that we've been not seeing for a while. Loads another HE. Ooh, bounces a shot from the E100. It was really lucky, and bounces another one from the E4. Now he tracks the E100, meaning that he can't angle against the shot, finishes the E100 off. Now he has to deal with this E4 very quickly because that E4, he's not the immediate threat. Well, he's a one-shot to the E4, but that's not the real threat. The real threat is the fact that artillery can shoot him from here. Side scrapes out, E4 takes the bait, tracks absorb it, tries going for the top hatch. Would have been better to try to shoot the flat face of it with the heat round, but it doesn't matter. Goes through again this time, and starts flanking the C4, who drove away from the safe position next to the Jagdpanzer 100. This is a mistake by the E4, and he's going to get punished for it. Nothing the E4 can do now. He's just going to continue to get shot in his flanks until he is eventually finished off. There we go. That's 9 kills, by the way, and 7,000 damage. 7,000 confirmed damage. He actually took a few blind shots, so he'll actually have a bit more damage under his belt by the end of this replay. Still, he's doing a really, really good job right now of dealing with the enemy vehicles. This is a fantastic match for him. So now all that's left is the artillery, because the 140, the one that we saw go taking a swim, is now stuck there, so he still is a one-shot for the artillery if they nail him directly or if the M53, M55 catches him with a splash. Doesn't have enough armor to take the hit, so he has to be very careful. But he's gonna try his original maneuver, go up the zero line, catch them off surprise, and there's the bat shot already. So one hit, needs to keep moving. Don't want to get hit by that Artie. Misses, and he's not gonna get a second shot. That was really close, he just overshot him, and there's the M53, who's currently sitting on the base, but that means we know where he's at, so we can be preemptively waiting for him, and approach from an unexpected angle. But he gets off, so that means he doesn't want to get on that cap alone because he knows he'll be vulnerable. So, what's the best option here? Well, you can sit at the base and wait for him to come to you, but that's dull and boring. Let's go hunt this guy. Yeah, no. Definitely not the most entertaining if you're not shooting at something. Hence the reason why I said this replay was definitely better for that. Still, where is that M53? Figured he would have... Oh, there he is. He has HE loaded, mind you. Doesn't penetrate with the shot, meaning that the M53... Oh, and he rushed the shot, didn't let it aim, flies over, finishes the M53. So all that's left is that 140. Now he has two options here. He can either go cap, which he has plenty of time to go do, and he'll still get everything, or he can try to go for this next kill here, which is what he decides to do here, because you'll see in a moment... Bang, Sixth Sense goes off. Now he only has 2 heat rounds left, so he needs to make these 2 shots count, otherwise he's going to have a hard time. 445, okay, just penetrate both your shots, you're good. First shot, it hits the support beams on the pier. That's not good. Next one, bounces. That's not good. That's not good at all. Okay, he has HE loaded, which is good, because that means he can keep the 140 pinned in there, but he has to penetrate with one of these. And that last one goes through, nice and easy. 12 kills, over 9,000 damage dealt. Jeez. Talk about an interesting match. Anyway, let's actually go see how his damage came out in the post-game stats. So, here we are, post-battle results. As you can see, it was his second mark of excellence. Look at that, 85% more damage than, or rather, better damage than 85% of all other players. Mastery Badge Aegis Tanker, unsurprisingly. Hand of God, Bruiser, Duelist, Fire for Effect, Shell Proof. Those are, fairly standard on this tank. Pool's medal for destroying 10 or more. He destroyed 12 enemy vehicles in that battle. Kolobanov's medal for standing alone against 6 enemy opponents, not 5. Well, technically 5 because the 140 got stuck, but still, gonna give credit where credit's due. Defender medal, Steel Wall, High Caliber, and Top Gun because, can't have pools without Top Gun. As far as his total, look at this. Just look at the damage between the two teams. He did double the damage of the next highest guy on his own team. And he did 3 times the damage of the best player on the enemy team, who was the 140 who got stuck. Jeez. Shots fired, 48. Direct hits, 46. Goes to show the accuracy of the gun, especially at the ranges he was engaging at. He wasn't shooting in extreme ranges. 34 penetrations, not all the shots went through. Damage, 9,300, almost 9,400. Not a lot from a long distance, but look at this. Hits received, 13, non-penetrations, 9, for damage blocked by armor, 5,240. This right here is something you'll never see in this tank, or you very rarely will ever see it, unless you know how to, position hold down and get everyone to not shoot at your cupola or the top section of the turret. And look at that, base defense points exactly 100. Credits received 130,000, but look at that. Even despite earning that ridiculous amount of credits with premium account, mind you, he still lost 12,000. If he wasn't earning premium, he would have lost 55,000 credits. Still, you gotta give credit where credit's due. 1,728 base XP per game. Jeez, that must have been very interesting to see. Still, one hell of a replay. Alrighty, second replay of the day. This is, well, me driving around my own Object 140 on the D-Day map. Overlord. Oh, jeez, I forgot about that. So, why did I take this one over a few others? Well, It gives me an opportunity to both show a few of the weaknesses that I described of the 140 later on, most notably that top section of the turret, but that'll happen later on. So, first action here, tier 10 match, very favorable matchmaking for the 140. So, first thing I said to do a bit of early scouting. Not nearly as fast as the Batchat or that WZ-131 over there, but still, I at least get the spot in. Even if it is only a WZ-131. Whoever didn't want to shoot at me, there's Pen KR over there. Yeah, no, not that exciting compared to the first one, is it? Like, it's still, they both start out really slow, but they'll pick up. And I do a mistake here. I came out at the wrong angle as I'm going for this Patent Korean. I don't get punished for it, though. The shot bounces off the upper glacis. So, you know, that's always nice. And this is where I do it right. I come up, only the turret, bang, another hit. Shot doesn't go through, and this is where I see the enemy 140 trying to come up that line here. And he's going to be going after that Walker Bulldog, so I try to angle myself here. I want to get the jump on him, so I'm trying to stay out of his 50 meters, and shot goes into the ground. Come on, dunce. We told you, you can aim better than this. Alright, here we go again. We try to place another shot into him. We succeed in blowing his tracks off. Now, I make another mistake here. I come out too far, and I take a hit. And that was a heat round, mind you, because, again, you're in a tier 10 tank. You need to be firing your premium ammunition for some reason, even though heat's a pile of garbage. Shot to the cupola misses. He gets his tracks fixed. I back up. Look at this. Bang. Shoot the cupola. He pushes up. I back off. Push up again. Bang. Cupola again. That's one of the weaknesses of this tank, and I'm just abusing the crap out of it just because it sticks out so much. Now that he's fired, don't have to worry about him. Put a shot into him. The Patent KR is actually what puts a shot into me, but I'm not frightened of him anymore. My rate of fire is better than his, and he doesn't have a lot of health to spare anymore. He's not going to outplay me in this situation, so I get a little more aggressive. Put a shot into him. T-32 coming up. Okay, not a big deal. Auto aim. Bang. Now there are two targets here. There's either the Patent over there, again another Korean Patent, or the E75. Now I go for the E75, but I try to keep that hill between me and that Patent KR over there as best I can. E75 not having a good day. He gets finished now. Well, there's that AMX 5100 here. Now I want to try to catch him on a reload, and that's where I make another mistake. I should have come out trying to side scrape. I instead overcommitted, and he blows the tracks off. If I didn't have that repair kit, he would have just kept me pinned in place, using his auto-loading mechanism, and just dumped the rest of his damage into my tank, which is, even though the 5100, because is at tier 8, because it's an auto-loader, armed with 100 mil, it's still very dangerous, so little misplay. I don't get punished too badly for it. I only take one hit. Put one through that 5100. I wait for him to come out. I'm waiting for him to come out and he overcommits, but he doesn't do that. He instead backs off. So reposition again, trying to anticipate what target he's going to shoot at. And here we go. That's what I mean by overcommit. Look at that. Blows his tracks off. That's what he would have done to me, except for now I reposition now to side scrape, so he doesn't have a clean shot. Finish him off. That's what we mean by making a mistake in overcommitting. So, the rest of this replay, well, I don't get to see any action. Everything else is either killed before I do, but at the very least, I'll go ahead and spoil how it ends. We did end up winning by base capture, but we tried tracking down this Type 4 Heavy, like, at the end of the match, thinking he'd be somewhere in the corner of the map. Little did we know that this entire time, he hasn't been lit yet, mind you. He has not shown up on the map once. He snuck around the beach and managed to make it into our own capture circle, so that was nice to find out. Anyway, enough of that. Let's move back on to the post-game stats. So, as you can see, again, it wasn't very exciting. The only thing that I got out of that was a high caliber. That's actually a second class, which actually isn't that hard. Like I said, bruiser, duelist, fighter, and fire for effect. Not really hard to get on this vehicle. Unfortunately, though, most of that damage that I did do was stacked against the 140 on the enemy team, which really just isn't fair because he had no idea where to shoot back at me or how to position properly. On top of that, I had a rate of fire advantage still over him, which is a little cheap, I'll be honest. 5.22 your heat's not going to stop that just because I'm still going to out DPM you anyway. Either way, 21 shots fired, 17 hits, 17 penetrated, 4,300 damage, you know, not that big. Basically, only one hit blocked by armor, or actually I think it was 2 hits. Yeah, 2 hits blocked by armor, which I believe were both from the Patent KR, which, you know, I don't expect to be blocking hits in this thing, so it's not that bad. Surprisingly enough, though, I still lost credits just because I had to use premium consumables. I was still running food, and I ran the large repair kit, and when I got tracked, I had to burn the large repair kit, so yeah, not exactly the most ideal, but still, it's it at least goes to show exactly what the tank can do a little bit under the right circumstances. So, the Object 140. Is it a tank that you guys should get? Yes, I personally say it's definitely one of the best tier 10 vehicles available out there right now. It is used in Clan Wars competitively, though you don't see much use of it, except for on specific map compositions, which I believe are like Steps, Westfield, there's a few others I'm trying to remember, but it's still used in tier 10 Clan Wars, so it's definitely worth a pick-me-up if you don't have enough tier 10s. It's definitely viable for it, along with the 62A or the 430. At that point, it doesn't matter for Clan Wars, but still. As for a great all-rounder tank, it is definitely worth a pickup. So, that's the end of the 140 review. If you like it, go ahead. Press the like button, dislike it, doesn't matter to me. Have any questions about the tank that I didn't cover? Go ahead and leave those questions in the comments below. And also, go ahead, you can take a look at vote. Discuss what the next tank will be. Top votes based on the thumbs up I will use for the next tank if I have it. If I don't have a tank, well then I'll grind to it and give you guys a filler video on one of the grinder tanks, because I plan to cover every tank in the game, so it won't be easy, but at the very least we can make it happen. Anyway, that's it for this guide. See you in the next tank review.